Lovely Friday afternoon. Here we are. How is it going, bud?
Going great. Welcome to the 28th episode of Remainders on the day when they decided to retar my roof of my apartment. So if it's a loud one, I apologize. I'm going to do my best to mute our conversation when I'm not talking. But this is a good day because I can't believe we were originally going to cover the movie M, and we made a quick last minute change to American movie because it was available to view on Criterion. So, welcome to American Movie on Remainders, the 28th episode. And this is kind of, in my opinion, a tribute episode to Mike Schank.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely in support of that. Quick question about your roof.
Can
Before we,
you
before
hear?
we,
Can you hear it or no?
no, not at all. But
Okay.
are you? I'm just more curious because I've unfortunately never visited your place in California.
Yeah. What gives?
You're on. I told you I'm lazy, bud.
Yeah.
Are you on the top floor? Are you just like
No,
me? No.
I'm on the lower here. Yeah. So they
Okay.
started like earlier this week. So my parking space is gone. They moved in all the tar into my parking space. So I have to go and like do the like move my car onto the road, and then like they do the street sweeping. So then I got to move it somewhere else. It's like the biggest hassle in the world, but it's okay. Trying to find the positive in it all. At some point we'll have a new roof, and maybe I'll get some saving, a couple cents saving on my heat bill or air conditioning bill at some point.
Yeah, I just got a new Amazon box in our apartment foyer, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's my update. I don't think we have a new roof or anything, although we had a pretty windy day here in Chicago, an actual windy day, not political, and there was something that was hanging off of our roof, and I couldn't hear from my unit, but like when I went outside, there was like this banging against somebody's actual like window, and I could like see it happening, and it was I felt pretty bad for them, but I was grateful it wasn't happening to me. So it was like a record windy day. It was like 70 miles per hour wind that day. So
Right, windy, but not the political kind. It happens too. Chicago actually is a windy city at times, and I don't forget that. Right now, I'm imagining that you guys are probably experiencing what, 40-degree weather?
it's snowing right now.
Okay, okay. Well,
Yeah,
there's that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm all for it though. I went out running this morning in the cold. It wasn't snowing then, but I like the masochistic runs sometimes early in the season. So
There's
I won't
something
be
about that cold. Yeah, there's something about that cold that really like hits you well when you're like running. Like it gives it's like more of a breathable
Oh, yeah,
thing.
that's the best. That's the best
Yeah.
type of running. I mean, either when it's really cold or really hot, that's definitely my favorite time to kind of go outside and running, because the cool down period of that is always the best part of it. So
Yeah. Well, like I said, when we started the conversation here, I'm just excited. I was kind of like ready to roll right into this because American Movie was one of the greatest movies that I've seen when I was younger. And I was looking at the date on it, and I was thinking like, what was happening in movie land at the time this came out, 1999. So think about it, like the American Pies and all of those kind of, you know, great soundtrack to your youth movies, and then you've got somewhere in there Roger Ebert telling us to go see American Movie, which I did, and I'm glad I did. And I mentioned earlier that it's a tribute to Mike Schank because Mike Schank just passed away. One of the characters in the movie, not the characters, it's a documentary. So one of the actual people in the film, who is the main filmmaker's best friend in the film, he passed away about a month ago in October. So I did want to give a tribute to him because he's just so great in this film. The film, in many ways, I feel is like for all of us who are trying to get out of like, you know, our hometown, and we have big dreams, and we want to make something of our lives, despite all of the bills that are piling on and all the crazy challenges that we face all day. I think this movie is for all of us.
I love that. I mean, I was excited to hear your take on it because I knew you were a fan of this movie, but I don't think we've ever talked about it. So I was definitely familiar with this film in the Suncoast days when we were working there in the early 2000s. I remember people asking for it pretty quickly, and it just wasn't really on my radar other than that. And so I didn't see this until maybe like 15 years ago, maybe even a little bit later, maybe like 2009, 2010. And I was like blown away. I was like, I can't believe I waited 10 years to watch this for the first time. And yeah, I definitely echo everything you said about that. It is just kind of that unique story of an American dream that is pretty, I mean, it's not like saccharine in any way. Like this guy, I mean, and we can definitely get into it, but whether or not his dreams are actually going to be coming true, I think is debatable in the film. And and I'm hoping to get your take on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mike Schank, yeah, he passed away. He was 53. Just passed away last month. And yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people who were noting this, like notable directors. I know Edgar Wright was tweeting about his passing quite a bit because he was a huge fan of this movie, understandably so, because of his kind of do-it-yourself beginnings. And yeah, it was good to see that like his presence was like so beloved by so many people.
Yeah, isn't that the funny thing? It's like you make a movie about like not being very good or having the passion to do something, but you don't have a budget, but all you gotta use your friends to help you. I mean, in many cases this is a story, like I said, of all of us. Like every music video I've done, let's pull the guy over here who can be the DP, who can hold the camera, who can rent the gear and bring it in their van, who's got the skateboard that could be the dolly. Like that's the story of all of us when you're starting out, or you don't have any money. You got to do what you can. And he's like that. And in so many ways, so when I say we haven't said the main person, the main focus of this is Mike Borchardt, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Borchardt, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, they don't really say his last name too much, but his name's Mark, and he lives in Wisconsin, which is a Midwest guy. And it feels obviously very Midwest. You've got that they're wearing the Green Bay Packers hats in this. They're talking about, at one point, the Green Bay Packers win the Super Bowl in the most amazing juxtaposition of winners versus losers in the town, and how Mark feels about that when they win the Super Bowl. And when he's drunk, that
was definitely my kind of Super Bowl party, with Mark getting drunk and razzing everybody. So
totally, and being like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be like just like you, Mom, floating around the kitchen," and he's really just kind of drunk and spouting off, which I've been there before. When you're frustrated, there's a lot of frustration in this that you want to get past where you are. He constantly is talking about, I'm not going to end up, this is not going to be my life. Or he looks at the older generation, like his uncle, of course, that we'll talk about. And his uncle has money that he needs to borrow from, but he's always asking him, what did you do with your life? Are you giving up now that you're older? And it's so interesting the way that the characters in this film look at each other, because it kind of mirrors where their future might go, or what they want but they can't achieve, like what I'm saying with the Super Bowl with the Packers and stuff. But it's easy to just sit there and be angry, but it also inspires you, right? All of these things make you want to work hard at it. And a lot of times, even in the movie itself, the question is asked, do you think Mark is going to do it? Do you think he's going to break through? And everybody's response is, his parents, everybody's literally, I don't think so, it's hard, it's not going to happen. But it's like he's not hearing any of that. He's got the blinders on. And I don't know, it's like reality mixed with the dream. There's a lot of people out here in LA that wish that they could make their dreams come true when they come out here, and sadly that just doesn't happen to everybody, right?
Yeah, that definitely touches on one thing that I noticed that I think makes this movie stand out, and it's the Midwestern sensibilities in it. It's obviously set in Milwaukee, but it is kind of that
I'm sorry, Milwaukee. I'm sorry. I think I said Wisconsin earlier. But yeah, it's like a town in Milwaukee, right? Or
No, they're in Milwaukee, which
yeah.
yeah, no, you got it. And I think it is that Midwest setting that kind of really makes it stand out. Like if you were gonna, if you just made this movie about a couple guys in LA, it probably wouldn't hit the same way that other movies might. Not to say anything bad about anybody working in film in LA, but like it definitely makes it far more relatable for one. I mean, I was taken aback anyway, but by the I almost feel like the gray skies were almost planned in the editing. I mean, there was not a sunny day in any of these shots.
Right.
And I was like, if that's coincidence, it might be, but it almost felt methodical in the editing because it definitely paints a pretty accurate picture of the gray weather here in the Midwest sometimes. So, but yeah, I really do think it's that. I mean, it's his determination to finish his film despite everything working against him, most notably himself. But like I said, it being the Midwest component, I think that really kind of makes it stand out and is definitely what makes it special for me, for sure. Obviously, growing up in the Midwest, even though a little bit closer to Chicago, though. So, yeah, no, I mean, it definitely was making me think of a couple of its spiritual successors, most notably like the movie Anvil or The King of Kong. I don't know if you've seen either one of those.
I have not, no.
No, yeah, Anvil is about the metal band, the true story of the metal band from the 80s that were just never quite made it into the top tier of metal acts. And so it's about their story, like still doing the band in their 50s and not giving up, another Midwest setting. And then King of Kong is the guy's pursuit for the best score in Donkey Kong Jr. And that one just kind of rings true to another one of this. It's just like the Midwesterner, like pursuing his dreams at all costs, despite everything working against him. And it's kind of that relatability that what makes all those movies, including especially this one, stand out.
Yeah, interesting. You know, I talk a lot about this to people out here. Like when you end up finding somebody from Chicago or the Midwest, but mostly Chicago, like it's mostly kind of like what I've experienced. They all seem to have this kind of like moment where they realize, oh, you're going to do things differently because you're from the Midwest. There's sort of like an unspoken thing about that. I don't know if it's like that like pull yourself up by your bootstraps that we've talked about before mentality in the Midwest, where it's like, don't complain about anything, just work hard. And, you know, whether or not we want to admit it, it's still instilled in us from, you know, growing up that way. So when you come to a place like LA, it's a little bit more relaxed. I'm not saying business isn't hard or isn't, you know, whatever, but when you work on things, there's definitely a more relaxed feel than I experienced in Chicago. And so I can relate to what you're saying. In the film itself, it does come out that way. Like, despite everything, the gray clouds, there's no sun, there's no birds chirping outside, I'm going to get this damn movie done.
Yeah.
What if it kills me, you know? And that is for sure on display in this film.
Yeah, and I mean, just to touch on that, you definitely point out the masochistic side of the Midwest sensibilities, which are not helpful.
Yeah.
I definitely am very familiar with the difference between the two regions in terms of what, like you said, the sense of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps despite reality. And there's a very masochistic and self-blaming kind of reserve that does get bred more so in the Midwest, I'd say, unfortunately. So
yeah, no, for sure. And the characters in this film, which again, it's a documentary, and for everybody out there who's listening, we haven't really gone into the plot too much, but it's a film about a guy who wants to make and complete a horror movie that is like his biggest crowning achievement. But before he can, he needs to get the funds to complete that. He's in the Midwest, as we talked about, in the Milwaukee area, along with his friend Mike Schank, who we talked about as just passing away, are on this mission despite all of the things life throws at you. He's had a relationship with a woman that is unraveled, and he has 3 children from it. His name's Mark, and he has 3 children. And so he's got that. He's got the bills that come with that. He also has bills from just life in general that he can't pay. At one point, there's a scene where he talks about all his bills, and this is another thing I want to talk about, because the filmmaking is done so well that at one point it just kind of cuts off, it fades out, because his bills, he's talking about these bills he has, and it literally just keeps going. So at one point it's just kind of like fades out, and it's such a genius filmmaking technique to do that, because it makes it feel like it's never ending, and really gets it across that, man, these guys are out here not doing well. And Mike Schank, who's his friend who's helping him, is a recovering addict, who is, at the time of his death, I believe he was 28 years sober. So in this film, he talks about how he doesn't drink no more, and he's always laughing, and he's got this giggle. He's just kind of this lovable guy who just is kind of like a burnout, but he just like is so dedicated to helping his friend find his dream of becoming a filmmaker, because he's just, I don't know. It's like kind of why you should do anything, because like you like a person and you have fun doing it. There's really no other thing at stake for Mark or for Mike. But for Mark, it's like everything. It's his dream. He needs to get this so he can be this great filmmaker and go on and make more films. It's his passion. That's, I think, the plot in a nutshell.
Yeah, no. And I mean, their friendship, even though they don't focus on it at all, really, or kind of discuss it too much, but it's like so clear and present between the two of them. Like I said, even though the film itself doesn't really dive into it, it just comes across so clear. I mean, there's one scene, it's later in the film when Mark is feeling pretty down and Mike is there just hanging out. They're trying to be quiet because the kids are sleeping. And just Mark is just totally nonchalantly. It's like, yeah, Mike came over and he made me smile. He's just like telling that to the camera. It's just in a very passive way. Just that's.
He basically said like, I don't think I could do it anymore. Like I felt I was gonna give, like when you say the words like I was gonna give up, but then this person came and really changed things. Yeah, that says it all right there.
Yeah.
And there's interesting tweet that when I found out that he passed away, there was a tweet that I retweeted about the movie. I forget who it was. I just loved it though. It was like, if you want to learn how to be a good friend, go watch American Movie today. Rest in peace, Mike Schank. And I love that.
Yeah. No, that's great. Mike seems like a perfect Jim Jarmusch character. Any thoughts on that? He seems like somebody that Jim Jarmusch would have loved to write.
I mean, for sure. I wasn't sure if you were saying like realistically if he was like a Jim Jarmusch filmmaker.
No. I'm just saying like the way Jim Jarmusch sees characters, I could see him trying to create a Mike type character. So that's what made it. I mean, he's just so like genuine. That's what I loved about it.
I mean, this character is great. So a little fun story. Back when this came out, I was in a band called Backdrop, and the drummer and I had seen this movie together. And there was a website for American Movie, and on the website they had their phone number available for people who saw the movie and wanted to talk to them. And so one night we called that, and we literally talked to Mike and Mark for probably a half an hour to 45 minutes on the phone.
Oh shit.
Had beers and like we're talking to them, and they were in Mike told us they were in his basement, which you see a lot in the film. I love that I get to tell this story now, because it's like kind of a crowning achievement for me. Like I love guys, I love this movie, and I got to talk to him for a while, and it was just bullshitting around about stupid stuff. They probably got it all the time, people calling their house phone, but they had that accessible to us, and I love that. It was such a cool little thing, and a great memory I get to share to anybody who loves this movie. And when I talk to them, like, yeah, I talked to those guys on the phone. It was awesome,
Oh man, it's great. Love it. Back when movies had their websites, and that was the only place you would get information about it, I guess.
I mean, right. It was 1999, in a time when I guess you were making a lot of films that were not like this. I mean, it was a big hit for them, you know, and for the filmmakers. I mean, it really did well. And I do believe, like I said, Roger Ebert was really talking this up. So there was a lot of critics
Oh
who
yeah,
loved the movie.
yeah. I think I saw he gave it 4 stars, uh, discussing just it's a tribute to basically the filmmaking process, which is obviously what the movie's about, but just for anybody who loves that component, that behind the scenes, that real life aspect of filmmaking. I mean, it's obviously the bread and butter of this movie. So,
And I mean, think about it too. There's a lot of stuff in here that Mark is very smart about. He really understands cameras. He understands, like, lighting, and he's out there with sound, like, to actually roll the sound. He's in the editing room, doing the edit and splicing the film. And that's not stuff that, like, just any normal person can do. So he's really pretty smart. I kind of guess my question for you is, like, what do you think gets in his way, during the film? What do you see that kind of gets in his way from actually achieving his dream?
Well, himself for sure. By far, it's the most his biggest obstacle. Yeah, he's definitely very technically proficient. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here when he's showing his inability to actually direct a film, though. I mean, especially when you look at like his wrangling with the actors, and then just kind of the logistics of filmmaking, obviously, like just like getting people together at the same time, and making sure that everybody knows what's happening. There's obviously by far that's the biggest obstacle for him, I would say. I mean, aside from the reality of like the monetary issue that everybody else faces. So
yeah, and it's funny, they're making a horror movie called Northwestern, and as I mentioned earlier, they're making first a movie called Coven, because they need to finish this for what Mark thinks is going to, generate the funds to help finish Northwestern. And I don't know if you noticed this, but kind of death is definitely a big character in this film. I mean, he works at a cemetery, Mark does, and it's kind of like always around. He's making a film about like horror, and even his uncle, that he's very old, and it's kind of like looming about the finality, like what it's a little bit of a bigger ask for the audience, but in general, we're not going to be here forever, and what you do with your time, at least what I'm pulling out of this, is important, whether or not you're the biggest director in the world or you're not. And a lot of times they do interviews with his mom, and they're like, this is what he loves to do, and it's a labor of love, as anything is that you love to do. I mean, artistically, anybody who's in it doesn't make $1 million right away. If you do, you're very lucky. You have to really work at it. You have to get good at it. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to persevere through a lot of things. There's a lot of financial challenges, and in the end, is that worth it? Because we only get one life, and or at the end of the day, would you rather be in that cemetery and look back on your life and, well, I worked for somebody and I had like a pretty like good life that, I didn't do anything artistically or have to like go through any challenges. I just kind of skated through. I don't know. I kind of have to ask myself those questions when I watch movies like this. Like, what is the benefit of struggling so much in life for what you love to do?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the opening 5 minutes kind of lays out everything that we've kind of talked about so far. I mean, you have Mark talking. I mean, he says some like pivotal lines. You get no second chances in life. There's more to life than just drinking and dreaming. That one definitely hits for a lot of people, I'd say.
Sounds like a TLB song almost.
Yeah. Love it. And then and then it cuts to like him opening up some bills, and he opens up another one, and it's him getting a MasterCard, and he's like, I got a MasterCard, and then just title cut American movie. And it was like, so like it just within that first 5 minutes, it sets up everything of like who this guy is, what his determination is, but he's obviously going to be facing the obstacles that a lot of people face, especially like when you're taking out something as huge as making it a film.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it too, like the interesting thing is like, okay, we were talking about like at some points, like all of this money, like $30,000, $50,000 that he needs to finish, and he's got like a whiteboard, and he's talking about all these like crazy numbers. When half the time you're like, does he even know like what he's talking about his uncle Bill being a producer and he needs to borrow this much money, but does he really
Yeah,
know that it's going to take that much? Like, because at some point Mike Schank comes in and he wins $50 on a scratch, constantly doing scratch offs, and he's
yeah,
like, yeah, I don't want to tell those guys though, because, and by the way, talk about great filmmaking, great editing. He comes in and he's got Marky, he's got his I think it's Thanksgiving, and he's got like the stupid smile on his face, and Mike Schank is kind of like, yeah, and then you hear Mark say, well, what you got going on that you're not telling us? And they cut to like an interview of Mike where he's like, I won $50 on a scratch off today, but I'm not going to tell those guys because they're going to want to take my money. They're going to want to take
yeah, yeah.
my money. It's like a beautiful moment of this film. Little things like that Chris Smith does that are so perfect. I don't know. I don't know.
No. I mean, his Mark's business plan on his whiteboard with the Sharpie, and then he just like swipes it off completely.
I'm sorry, I wiped that off.
I shouldn't have done that, but like that was his entire business plan, just like in this little foot markup, and it was so great. Yeah, and I mean this is a movie that like really does kind of hit. Just lightning that strikes. It's the personalities between Mark and Mike combined with the expert directing from Chris Smith. I don't think we've mentioned he's the director. I just found out he's directed that documentary Jim and Andy about Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey, The Great Beyond, that came out a couple years ago.
That was great too.
Yeah. That was a great film, and so this was obviously early in Chris Smith's career, and you can, and like we're saying right now, you can definitely tell the talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. So yeah,
and sometimes you can hear him ask the questions, like at some point that he knows what he needs to get out of the scene. Right. So yeah. Mark's in the car at the end of the last shot of Coven or Coven. Remember, they're like, they don't know how to say it.
I mean, I just realized that this movie is the reason why I've been mispronouncing or saying it the way that Mark says it for so many years. I definitely have say Coven by default. But I mean, I guess Coven is the appropriate one, but I think Coven probably is accepted. It's just not the most widely used, I guess. So
yeah,
but watching it this time around, I was like, oh, that's probably why I've been saying it like that for so many years now.
It's a point that they make in the movie for sure. With the kids are trying to pronounce it. That's another great little moment.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about Chris Smith is that he's realizes like how important the moment is that he's finishing the last shot of Coven, and then he also realizes that there was a fight between Mark and his lady that you kind of get to see from far away on the same day that this big moment for him, which should be a really big moment to finish Coven, which means he can go on and make Northwestern, but it's the juxtaposition of also he's got this really hard thing that's happening in his life with his kids who are going to be probably taken away and spend time with their mother. And it's kind of like brilliant to ask the question, what are you doing right now? And he was able to prompt him to be able to say, well, I'm finishing my shot of Coven. And then he goes into like how he's feeling about what just transpired between him and his for lack of a better word, baby's mama, because they're not married, his ex-girlfriend. And it's like the duality of this crowning achievement in his life with like this really big challenge is what this movie is all about. And Chris Smith knew how to get that out of that moment in the back of the car.
Yeah, I mean that's brilliant. Yeah, that the camera capture in the back of that car, that scene definitely stood out quite a bit because it definitely felt so genuine, capturing a moment of struggle that we've all been at some point or another, obviously depending on what each of us is going through. But like you could tell, like he was in a moment of kind of crisis. Not emergency crisis, but just reevaluating his life quite a bit, and it comes through in a very heartfelt way, and I loved it.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of moments like that that are just like they're really small, but I feel like there were moments that like in the field these guys were just smart and they knew how to get it out of um the characters of the film to tell the story properly. And like you said, it's like lightning in a bottle, right? Like you had these great people that are real people that are living, and a director who knew how to like tell that story and get out of them what he needed to tell the story properly.
Love it.
Not just not unlike movies like documentaries like Hoop Dreams and things like that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I need to rewatch that one. I haven't watched that for a while.
Oh, I just watched it just a little bit ago. It was excellent.
Is that Stevie Smith, the
Uh,
director?
yes.
Yeah, love it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, life itself, right?
Right. What did you think? You think Coven is a good movie?
I mean, I haven't seen it. I actually looked to see if like
based off this movie. Yeah, you don't have. I'm saying, do you think it looks like a good movie?
No.
Okay,
but then again,
I just wanted
like the equivalent of like Ed Wood making
right
from Outer Space or Glenn or Glenda. You know, we love those people who are like, again, it's kind of the same story against, except for Ed Wood actually got to be here in LA making films and got to shoot with Bela Lugosi, but had no money, you know, put together whatever they could just to get it done. And a lot of times though, for artists, you know, that's the point. Like if I have a shitty film camera from 1970s that my family gave me, and everybody else has the best top of the line $2,000 digital cameras that go straight to your phone when you take the pictures, but I get the opportunity to go shoot the Rolling Stones down the street at a small club, and I'm like, well, I either use a small camera or I don't do it at all because I don't have the equipment. Like you go and you get it done however you can. So
yeah.
you almost can't blame people for like trying to trudge through it to do the best they can. It's just like at the end of the day, some people are better at working with nothing than others.
I like that.
I mean, look at M. Night Shyamalan. Like a lot of like the old Easter eggs and a lot of his stuff were like his old movies that he made when he was a kid. But they're all very interesting. There's like great stories behind it. And yeah, like it's kids with a camcorder, but still like really great stuff. You just could tell that this guy had it, you know.
Well, there were a couple scenes with the hooded guys in the woods that were definitely calling back to The Final Sacrifice, which is one of the best episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000 of all time. And if you know, you know, it's definitely got those vibes. And so that's why I was curious about what Coven looked like to you.
Gotcha.
Coven.
Yeah, I know you're a huge Mystery Science Theater fan, so I cannot say that I've seen a lot of it, but I know how much you love it.
Oh man, favorite show of all time by far. But yeah, Final Sacrifice is Canadian. It's one of the best episodes. It was a Canadian like action thriller from the early 90s, and so like it was made around the same time as Coven was being made, and so it just definitely rang a lot of those vibes. I mean, there were scenes that were like explicitly almost the exact same with all the hooded guys in the woods, and so yeah, loved it.
Yeah, great stuff for sure. Look, can we talk at this point about Uncle Bill? I mean, we have to like have a little segment here about Uncle Bill, if you ask me, because he's one of the greatest characters in this entire film.
I should have gotten my Surge from the fridge to. Do
they still make Surge?
I have no idea, but I should have gone and gotten one.
Everybody out there, there's like an amazing moment where Coca-Cola had brought out a new soda called Surge, and they bring it from the fridge to give to this character who we're talking about now, Uncle Bill. So Uncle Bill is the producer of Coven, yep, and would have eventually been probably, well, posthumously, he's the producer of Northwestern, the main film that Mark is trying to make, because he's the money guy, but he's like literally a guy who lives in a camper, and it's explained early on by Mark's dad that he's very traditionally tight with his money, but if there's anybody who can get his money out of Uncle Bill, it's Mark, and Mark eventually does, and that's why he becomes the producer of this. But you know, there's some kind of beautiful scenes, but also like creepy scenes where like Mark is giving him a bath. And then he has
That fucking toenail.
Yeah, he possibly has the most memorable lines of this entire film, I would think. And those are, "It's all right. It's okay. Jesus told me so." Oh, wait. I fucked it up just like he did, right? "Oh, there's something to live for. Jesus told me so." And yeah, I think they're on like take 80 at some point when he finally just says like, "I'm not going to do it anymore," because he can't get it. It's one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's so great. And again, it's like the juxtaposition of him and his life and where he is, and how he's just kind of content with just being in, the trailer that he's in, and spending his remaining days hanging out, drinking peppermint schnapps every once in a while.
Peppermint schnapps and surge. So.
And Mark looks at him and is like, "Why don't you want to live? You're not in the grave yet. What? Come on. What did you do with your life? Like, we're still, he's got this like dreamer stuff is so, he's so pinpointed at it. It's so focused and targeted, Mark, interesting.
I just want to say that a rendition of the line had a little bit of Bela Lugosi in it, understandably, and it was perfection. So definitely, I'm definitely going to get a soundbite for that one. No, Uncle Bill. He does capture the positivity and also the sadness of this movie in the single character, because he's an old man who's clearly kind of struggling with keeping sane completely, and he definitely has his moments of senility, and but his heart is still there, and he's very much aware that he's supporting Mark's dream and how important it is to him. So
even if he says, though, like, "I don't believe in any of this."
Right. Yeah. He does. He's going to shit on it, but he's still going to show up and kind of do the thing for Mark at the end of the day, even though it's, there were some establishing shots or moments where it was like, yeah, Mark's not overtly taking advantage of this old man and his money for the movie itself. So
right. Like that's, I think, why they put those scenes in there. You're right.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Why they show him going over to his house and spending time with him, giving him a bath, pouring him a peppermint schnapps. It's kind of, but
also just like the technical stuff. They show him like at the bank setting up the account for the film production account from Uncle Bill's actual money, like directly depositing into the checks that will go for the movie, rather than Mark just having access to his money. So.
There's a lot of interesting things too in the interviews, especially with Mark's family, and things that come out of it. And sometimes it's like what you don't need to hear, that you just like have a really good general understanding of, like, all right, we don't need to get into his like growing up and his backstory of what his childhood was like. But you hear his dad say, "I wasn't always," and then he kind of stops himself and says, "Well, that's kind of getting personal." And there's like, that's all you kind of had to say. Like, you don't have to go like, "I was bad to them," or blah, blah, blah. It's like, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, whatever happened to Mark here to become who he is, it's kind of like you understood. It's like, no matter what, it's been hard for these folks, like, it's just a hard life, whatever that means, to, get him to where he is now, where he just wants to push out of that life to make a better life for himself. It's called American Movie. He's always talking about the American dream.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that captures the Midwest aspect perfectly. Acknowledge it, but certainly don't analyze it too much. So,
right. Yeah, totally. There's a lot to talk about in this film. I think the great thing that I always take out of it every time I watch it is that it takes me on a great ride, like movies should, but it also leaves me thinking like about my life and what I've done in my life, and how much I can relate to wanting to do something that's going to have a lasting impact, that will generate the next project, and what I'm willing to do to kind of get that going in my life. And especially in the last couple of years, I can watch this movie now after being older, and I probably haven't seen it since like 2000 something, early 2000. But as of like 2 years after the pandemic, I mean, I'm a full-time artist now. And in many ways, I'm kind of going back to like not a ton of money coming in, you know, and not a traditional job. And I think what I'm doing now is in many ways kind of back to like what Mark is doing to make his dream come true. At many points in your life that can happen to you, but like it's fun to see other people in the world doing exactly what you're doing because you love it, and that's really the only reason to do anything. It's going to better your life, whether the money comes in or not, because it's mentally important for us to follow the things that are positive instead of the things that you just have to do because society says you need to have good health insurance and, you know, a 9 to 5, you need to be handcuffed to a desk. A lot of people are faced with those decisions, and it takes a lot of courage, I feel, to keep going. So I love these characters for that. And I love seeing them at this point in my life, that they had the courage to go out there and do whatever it took. And I don't know a ton about Mark and where he's been, but I think he's still doing the same stuff right now. So,
I mean, yeah, you're definitely capturing what's so captivating about this film and these characters. So, yeah. And I just want to say your work these days has been, you know, some of the best that I've ever seen since our friendship. So you're definitely on the trajectory that is far more promising than a lot of the characters that have been at the heart of some stories.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, he is certainly still working. He's been, I mean, he's a full-time career in film, acting, mostly acting and directing some. So, I mean, I was just on his IMDb recently, and it's definitely pretty filled up. So, you know, he's definitely not just sitting back, still wanting to make his movies. He's definitely doing it. So,
yeah, that's great. That's great. I guess I should have done a little bit more research before our episode here, just to kind of see where he's at and what he's doing. But
I mean, not a lot that I recognize, but certainly working alongside. I mean, he was in a movie starring Danny Trejo just a couple of years ago. So, you know, gotcha. he's definitely on the radar for a lot of people. So that's definitely good to see that.
Yeah, I know. And I know it was well received, and in its time, it sounds like it just keeps on growing with fandom. Like you said, after Mike Schank passed away, a lot of people are singing this movie praises, you know?
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies that a lot of people really love, but just not, it doesn't get a lot of attention all the time. I mean, it certainly got attention. I mean, it won Sundance when it came out and it was popular, but like in the 23 years since it came out, it's not like I see it mentioned all the time. But then obviously with Mark's passing, it was clear that plenty of people hold it close to their heart.
Yeah, and you know, there's moments in this too, just to talk about Mike Schank for another second, that are so unexpected. He says very goofy, kind of to himself, kind of, you get the feeling that he's just happy-go-lucky and kind of like anything goes, but like he doesn't share a lot. But the music of this film is all done by Mike Schank. Yeah. All the kind of classical guitar work, which is amazing. And then also the scene, which we have to talk about, of the scream. They have every character in front of the microphone to kind of go up there and give their best scream. And you've got this guy who's like overacting of everything, right? He's like, I love that character, by the way. I don't even know his name, but he's so good. The older gentleman.
Right.
He wears the like scarf. Yeah. Oh, he's so good. So anybody out there who's listening to this, you just got to see this movie. I mean, I promise you're going to love it. But Mike Schank, like just understanding who he is from what I explained, that he's kind of reserved, he comes up there and he just knocks the scream out of the park. It has to be seen to believe, to be seen and heard to be believed. It's so good.
I mean, I've watched 1,000 fucking horror movies just in the last couple of years, and that Scream, it was top notch. It's impeccable. I mean, you just get blown away, and I mean, it's so great, like because he's such a like a low key character, low key personality, and then when he gets in the sound booth, he goes for this like triple threat scream, and it blows you away. I loved it.
That's like the stuff where like I have to feel like the filmmakers were like watching that footage and being like, guys, we have it. Like this is gonna get an Oscar. Like
I mean, you can see it. You can see it in Mark's face, both like as a director and his friend. He's just like, whoa, Mike, you got it. You got the stuff.
Yeah, totally. I know. And that's why this movie is so endearing. I think I've used that word a few times. You know, it's like it's a very endearing film. It's a very cool story about friendship, about, you know, making something creative against all the odds. What's not to love about that, you know?
Love it. Love it.
So should we take what we've learned here from this and transition into our top songs of the week that we've been listening to? Are you done talking on your part of American Movie, or we have more to talk about?
Yeah, no, I mean you definitely nailed a lot of the stuff I was excited about, especially hearing your connection to it. So yeah, I'm definitely good with it. I mean, there were just so many good lines, and I'm trying to determine.
Yeah, roll off a few if you got some. I know there is a lot. Yeah.
I mean, my mom and my brother are having a very sterile dinner somewhere, talking very sterilely about some very sterile subject. He's clearly just thrown shade at his mom and brother on Thanksgiving about their non-filmmaking soaked Thanksgiving. I love it.
That adds to like the like classic. He's inebriated when he's saying that, and half the time, like when you see him talking, it's not like, you know, you feel like he's like a drunk the whole time, even though it's kind of implied. But like, you know, just does what he wants. So half the one time he's eating a turkey leg, you know, out, like on screen, and it's like I just put myself back there where it's like you got that attitude of I don't give a fuck. Like I mean, and that's why he's such a great character for this film, is like he's kind of like says and does what he wants, but there's a little aggression that I can relate to in things like those lines when he's like, yeah, they're having a sterile conversation about like whatever, and like there's this little bit of him that wants to be in those sterile conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No doubt. So, but yeah, I love that one, and maybe just the last one. I think it's a good Markism. You know, just on his philosophy in life and where he's at is. If he's examining himself and just kind of seeing where he's at in life, and he says to himself, talking to the audience, is that what you want to do with your life? Suck down peppermint schnapps and call Morocco at 2 a.m? No way.
Yeah.
So that was his moment of enlightenment. Just like, well, that's what I did last night, so I better get my fucking act together and finish this goddamn film, or else that's what the rest of my life is going to look like. So
totally. Yeah. And you know, his determination, like we talked about it time and time again through this film, of like, I'm in bed, I'm sick. His mom comes in there, tries to get him out of bed, and he's like, yeah, I got, you know how many phone calls are waiting for me over there? It's like, I don't know how many are really waiting for you. It's like, just kind of like probably one of those guys that puts like the work on himself, like again, self-deprecating, because it's like, feels like that's how it's supposed to be. Like to really achieve the greatness, I've got to get out of all the things I'm buried in, but like half the shit he's buried in, I think he puts on himself, you know?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, love it. But yeah, no, that actually sums it up for me. I just want to thank you for making me watch this again, giving me the pleasure of watching it again. Like I said, I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it's definitely a heavy hitter that I've been wanting to revisit for a long time. So
yeah, and I'm so glad that we did the switch. You know, like I really wanted to make sure that we paid a little tribute to Mike Schank after passing, and that look, we gotta do M. I love M. And
I mean, we'll definitely get to Fritz Lang at some point.
Yes, I mean Fritz Lang, yeah. But moving to American Movie, thanks for making that quick switch. When I saw for everybody out there listening, it's on Criterion right now in a tribute kind of conglomerate there of Sony Picture Classics, which back in those days when you saw that blue screen come up and it said Sony Pictures Classics, you know you were seeing like a pretty important independent film that you should be seeing. And this is part of that series on the Criterion channel, so you can watch it over there. We're big fans, of course. And then, yeah, American movie, fantastic film. We both recommend, and you should check it out.
Love it, love it. Yeah, I was maybe sticking just on other movie news. Streaming services, man, like between Criterion Channel and HBO Max, just for straight up movies. I mean, those two are basically the only ones I've been kind of utilizing the last several months. Just basically in terms of quality, just how much more stuff. I'm just happy watching it. I mean, I just haven't touched like Netflix in so long that I don't know. Yeah, I was just a huge fan of how curated both of those channels are. And definitely big.
Well, when I have to cinch up like on my you know, in and out of money, I always can get rid of everything except for Criterion. It's always
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the most reliable. You know, it's like the music box. It's like even if you don't know what you're going to watch, you definitely have trust in their programming, so you know it's going to be at least worth your time to check it out. Like
Right.
there's nothing that you're going to have on the Criterion channel that isn't. You know, you may not like everything on there, but like it's going to be worth your time to check it out, no matter what they're playing. And you can't say that for most streaming services at all, understandably so. So
Yeah, Criterion's definitely stepped it up in my opinion over like the last year. I've been a member of that streaming service since it started. Was born out of Filmstruck passing,
right.
which was a great service. But they kind of were getting their bearings for I think the first year, and now they're like really curating some really great stuff. So it's great.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Criterion and like I said, HBO Max is doing great, but because their Criterion selection on HBO Max is pretty strong too.
And they must be owned by the same people or something, you know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the details on like who owns what, right, and in terms of contracts of HBO being a conglomerate, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of alignment there. But then if I add Shudder into that trifecta, I got everything I need. So Shudder is A+ in terms of streaming service.
I know we're not going to get to M next week because that's going to be your pick, which I don't know about yet. What that?
Oh, man, we got an exciting pick. We'll just say that. So
okay, yeah, I know you don't want to give it away, but we will get back to M. And yeah, let's transition to our song of the week, which I love this new kind of venture of Remainders where we can talk a little bit about music. Do you want to start? Do you want to go and throw yours out first?
Yeah, sure. I'm always excited to hear what you're listening to. You know, like I said, this is just like what we're checking out, what we think each other might like, and definitely always excited to hear your picks. But yeah, so earlier in the week, you and I were texting a little bit about Morrissey. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that concert. Unfortunately, you attended it. It sounded like it was great, but it wasn't quite up to what you were expecting.
Yeah. Okay. So I had almost forgot about this whole thing. But last week we talked about it. And if you recall, I was talking about like, I'm going to have to take a snowsuit and go up there because it gets really cold in that theater. And we got there. Luckily, I'm in walking distance to the Greek Theater. So we did a nice brisk
walk. Really? Nice.
Yeah. I mean, listen, 54 in California, I know people are going to laugh at you, but like 54 in California is like 20 degrees in Chicago. It's cold. It's colder for whatever reason. And
suck it up.
Here, I'm telling you, like, I don't even think that's the official reason why Morrissey left the stage.
Probably not.
But here's how I feel about everything. Morrissey is one of my favorite singers of all time. I love that his career is very unapologetic. And I love that he's unafraid to live the life that he wants to live as a person, but also as an artist. When I went to buy the tickets, like I said, it's probably like close to like 15, 16, 17th time I've seen him. Been lucky enough to see him and he hasn't walked off stage yet. Okay. So it's like, everyone's like, he's classic. He always does it. I hadn't seen it and he did it this time. And I told my girlfriend when we're sitting next to each other, we were really cold. We brought hand warmers. That's how cold it was. And I said, you know, it's possible he's not going to come back out. And she's like, I knew the show, like the
Did he
back.
make an announcement? Did anybody, or did they just walk off stage?
He walked off one time, and then he came back on and completed like 2 songs. The media was saying that he did 9 songs. I think he only did like 5 songs. It was less than. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna reschedule it, but there was no official announcement of why he did that. He just walked off, and he walked off with very much confidence. You don't know if there was like a threat or there was whatever. Listen, it was expensive tickets, okay? So everybody has the right to be mad, you know, but at the same time, I also went into it understanding that that could possibly happen. He's my favorite singer. It's worth the gamble. I saw him at the Hollywood Bowl in 2019, and it's one of the best concerts I ever saw. It was worth that experience. It was worth that risk to go see him because he's so unapologetic in his art, because he's so convicted in what he's singing about, because he has a way of connecting to people the way that he does. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. And I just hope he's okay. And I'm excited to see him again.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, we talked about it last week, and I saw that just like the day or two after. I was kind of bummed for you, but then, yeah, you said it was still a good experience. So that was good. But yeah, I mean, I was busting your balls a little bit, you know, for everybody. I think I've mentioned it. I'm on the Cure side. Not that there's, you know, not that there's any you know, dichotomy between the two, but
there's definitely like the depressing tone. I think you know, the melancholy in there.
Yeah, I mean, Morrissey's great, but Cure is one of my favorite bands of all time. And so I was busting your balls a little bit. They're on their European tour right now, and they played a 3-hour show like the same night in Barcelona, and so I just kind of was prodding you just a little bit. So hopefully you didn't take that.
No, not at all. I love it. I love that. I mean, there's definitely, you know, to be a Morrissey fan, you have to have a tough exterior because people are going to come at you. But I got to tell you, in Chicago, I'd wear my Morrissey shirts out and I'd get a lot of shit. Here in LA, it's a lot different. You wear a Morrissey shirt and like you literally get props all the time. They're like, hell yeah. I think there's something about Morrissey that people in LA get. I don't know why, but it's different here.
That reminds me, I never mentioned it to you other than through text. Yeah, I gave my props to that awesome girl who was wearing the Suizos shirts at Riot Fest this year.
Yeah.
So I went to Riot Fest, I talk about it, and there was a Suizos shirt, Darren's amazing band, and it was just a shirt just kind of flying through the crowd, and I just gave her like a thumbs up for the shirt. I mean, obviously I didn't recognize her or anything, but just definitely
give her props. It's always so weird to me.
No, we didn't talk or anything. I just kind of gave her like a good shirt, and so I mean, I could.
Sorry, I was gonna say 2 days ago, a friend of mine was at O'Hare, and on one of the baggage claim things that go through, there was a Carbonas sticker. So for everybody who doesn't know, that was my first band that I did in 1998, 1 year before American Movie.
Hell yeah!
That was my first ever band. And for some reason at O'Hare Airport, there's a Carbonas sticker stuck there. And he took the photo and sent it to me. I was like, holy shit, over 20 years old, that sticker.
Wait a minute, where was it at
O'Hare? At the O'Hare Airport, like one of the baggage claim, like terminal things where like, I don't know, he sent me a picture and it was just like, there it is. There's a sticker that's like,
oh, just like propped on a piece of equipment or something?
Yeah. Like it was probably one of the like, you know, back end international, like where the baggage things go.
Nice.
Because it wasn't like on the inside, you know, where all the people pick up their baggage. It was like one of the like, you know, they come out of the chute or something.
I mean, all your bands are international sensations, so that seems the appropriate spot for it. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad they live on somewhere. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, back to the music. There's a whole diversion that is purposeful, but yes, The Cure, they are on tour right now in Europe, and for a second tour, their opening band is the Twilight Sad. I saw them in 2016 The Cure, and that was when I first discovered the Twilight Sad, because they opened for them at the same time for that tour too. And so they've been a band from Scotland. They definitely have the Cure / Morrissey vibe to their music. All their albums are great, and so definitely the song that I've been listening to this week is "There's a Girl in the Corner" off the album "Nobody Wants to Be Here and Nobody Wants to Leave," and it is such a fucking great mood setting song, especially for this music that we're talking about right now. And like I said, seeing them open for the Cure, I definitely remember them vividly, and they've obviously been meshing well with the Cure because they're still opening them for them in Europe right now. And I'm definitely excited for assumingly they're going to have a 2023 North American tour, so hopefully I'll get to see both of them again next year. But yeah, There's a Girl in the Corner. We're obviously going to send links, and I'm excited to hear what you think about it when you listen to it.
I've never heard that band. I'm very excited to hear about it just by the way you've explained it. And also, what a great name for a record. Nobody wants to
right?
Yeah.
No, they're a very poetic band, like I said, from Scotland, and they just have a great sound. So yeah, definitely excited to hear what you think about them.
So say the name of the band one last time. I'm sorry.
The Twilight Sad.
The Twilight Sad.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll check that out. Thanks for that pick. I always love what you have to offer, and it's fun. Maybe we should start up the Spotify, playlist that we had going and when we did the Warren Zevon episode, Pat made a really excellent greatest hits Zevon Spotify playlist. So maybe we can do that again, kind of with all our picks that we're picking, throw them into a playlist or something.
Way ahead of you. Already got that started. We'll be putting links to the Spotify list for each show. So.
Wow, look at this.
We got.
You were lazy.
Yeah, I was listening to that Zevon list again after we spoke last week about your print, which saved me one, by the way. I'm waiting for payday, and then I'm gonna get.
Oh yeah, no. Of course, yeah. You got
it. And yeah.
Well,
that's all I had to say. Zevon's always great to listen to. I had nothing more to say about that, but.
No, yeah, for sure. And I just think it would be cool for everybody listening if there was a place to go to hear them all. So I'm glad you got that started. And for me, for this week, is something that I want to talk quickly about. I told you I thought this was a great idea. So last weekend, every Friday, I go over to my girlfriend's and we'll discuss, what we did for the week and everything. And I was like, oh, Pat, had this great idea for Remainders about the song of the week. And so when we listen, of course, to our picks, and then it kind of got us into a moment where I was like, well, maybe we should do that, well, what do you, but maybe I was thinking in my mind, maybe you should tell me a song that meant something in your life, She said, I said, well, for example, when you lived in Nashville, what was the soundtrack to that, time? Because I didn't really know her then. And I kind of want to, that's a good way to open up an understanding of somebody. And she told me about the song, The Devil in Me by Gin Wigmore. And earlier this year, we saw Gin Wigmore play here in LA. She's a New Zealand singer-songwriter. And, I saw her with my girlfriend. It was the first show back from the pandemic where we went in, we wore masks the whole time, and it was a very small club. Blown away by the show. And I had kind of forgotten after the show about her music. I mean, we had a great time. I loved the songs, but I didn't really listen to any of her songs. So when my girlfriend told me this was a very important song to me in Nashville, when I lived there, it really brings me back. I went and I listened to this record. So not only is the song The Devil in Me, which is my pick for the week, amazing, the record Gravel and Wine from 2011 is a hit after hit after hit. Gin Wigmore, great singer, songwriter. And I love what this did for us, for our relationship, through just having a song of the week. You could kind of I can really picture my girlfriend listening to this, in Nashville back before she knew me, kind of that life we don't get to experience of people that we love, there's moments when we're just not around, right? So what was the soundtrack of that time? And that was this. But Gin has a bunch of songs that have videos from this record too. So if you're out there and you're interested in this song, "The Devil in Me," I think you'll like a lot of the videos that she had out from it. So "Gravel and Wine" is the record. "The Devil in Me" is the song. I've been crushing that record all week long, and I think you guys will love it.
Oh yeah, yeah. You've mentioned this name before. I'm not familiar with her, so I'm definitely excited to check that entire record out. So, yeah, definitely into it. Love to hear it, man.
Cool.
New Zealand, and Scotland representing today.
Yeah,
So
and we didn't even like plan that. It's like
yeah, keep it global. So
yeah, she's got a really cool voice. I think you're gonna really dig it. Really, really got something special and unique there.
love it. Beautiful. Yeah, this I'm excited. I got my Friday night pick out now for, so thank you.
Yeah,
So what's great about doing it on Friday nights, you discover a new record and keep that going for the night. So
yeah. Because I mean, obviously, we were listening to what we were listening to last week, and I think that the Meat Wave stuff. I got a couple comments about like people loving that record, and
oh yeah,
that's cool. I like hearing that. I like hearing like what what did you like about it, and having those discussions. It's kind of like what we do with the movies. We get to really understand like the way people are living their lives by what they take away from the art that they're consuming. So it's cool.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you, but like in this increasingly specialized technological world, I'm probably listening to less new music now than ever in my life. And so getting quality picks is certainly what's most important to me. And that's obviously why we've been trading music for so many years. And it's the best part about it. So
yeah, the world, I think the way to best sum that up is it's kind of like going to like an all you can eat all night diner has like 6 pages of things that you can order, and it's just too much. It's like
right.
That's kind of how the world of information is right now. It's just like there's just too much, and so you kind of try your best to like make it this small list of just the really good stuff.
Curated. Love it.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to say one thing, just as we segue out here. I read something that I just was really interested in. I know we both love Scorsese, so I wanted to talk about it. Recently,
80th birthday this week.
80th birthday. So that's why I'm bringing this up. Recently, I read something about him. It was through a tweet, and it was, I don't know if this is true or not, but if it is, and I don't doubt it is because it just sounds very Scorsese, but it was about Scorsese going into Silence of the Lambs and being considered for the director of Silence of the Lambs. I don't know if you know this story or not.
No.
And the gist of it was that the book, I guess, is really, really gory. I never read the book. I'm sure you might have because you're just a reader. But Scorsese, being Scorsese, said, I'm going to show all of that. I'm going to, this, if I'm going to be the director of this, I'm going to show all of the gory parts. And they're like, even this part? And they're like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to show that.
Especially that part.
Yeah, especially. And so at one point he realized like that kind of wasn't the movie that the producers wanted to make or whatever. And so Jonathan Demme came in and then obviously made a movie which was very successful and didn't show a ton of gore and
very little gore. Yeah, I rewatched it a couple of years ago. It's amazing how much horror is transcended just for the performances. Because blood, there's not too much.
Right, and so I think that was the point of what Scorsese said after he was asked about it. So he says, I made the right decision by saying no because Jonathan Demme made a great film and I wouldn't have made it great. I wouldn't have made it. And there's a lot to take out of that for me. It means to me that Scorsese is so convicted in the way that he makes art that he is smart enough, and this is such a rare gift, that he's smart enough to realize when he's not good for something. He doesn't just go into it and say, I'm going to make this a hit. He's smart enough to realize it's right for me and I can tell the story in my unique way, which is why it will be a hit movie. But he doesn't go in and say yes to everything. And he can turn down things because it won't be a benefit to the project as a whole. And he knows that the project would be better served with somebody else at the helm. In my career in the world of making things, it's a very, very rare gift to have. And that's why Martin Scorsese deserves the biggest happy birthday from us here, in my opinion. Just want to make sure we acknowledge what a great filmmaker he is and what a great just artist in general, to really be celebrated for things like that amongst others. He's a great guy.
I love hearing that. Yeah, I didn't know that story. I mean, yeah, we're definitely going to cover, it's my desire to cover his cocaine quadrilogy is what I call it. And it's those 4 movies that are, you know, more or less fueled by the idea of cocaine, sometimes overtly, sometimes covertly, but it's kind of the directing style that is a recurring theme through Goodfellas, Casino, Departed, and then Wolf of Wall Street. Those 4 movies have the similar directing style that I fucking love, and kind of just what makes Scorsese, even though it's just a part of what he makes. And I can't wait for us to cover all 4 of those movies in a row, because definitely going to be a wild ride.
We have to. And I'm going to cut it off here, because otherwise we're going to continue talking all day. I know we are. And my Bugsprout Remainders time lot, I think, is like going to go over again in time, just like it did last week if we go like another 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut it off here. And on this, I started watching 6 Feet Under again.
Oh, man.
Dude,
my favorite drama show of all time.
I've been wanting to tell you. Last week I started watching. My girlfriend, she's never seen the show. Yeah, and dude, it's emotional for me. It's really, really emotional, because that show meant. We'll talk. We got to cover that somehow.
There's definitely a strategy that we can do, because there's no way we can cover like the show or even just one season in one episode. So yeah. I
mean, I feel like it's somehow we got to figure out creatively how to like cover that. But I'm watching it. I'm realizing I'm watching it. So 2005 is when it ended. I'm probably watching this now in my adult years, and it's different. Yeah. But man, it's emotional still. And I'm only in the 2nd episode. And like Nate Fisher, god damn it, man. You know? Yeah. Like, and I'm seeing so much of like your style from back then. Like, very like you in general were like very Nate Fisher, you know? So it's cool.
Oh, hopefully not all the toxic qualities of it though. So
no. But yeah, like the look, you know, like
yeah, for sure.
Shorter.
I rewatched it maybe 4 years ago. I mean, I probably watched the show all the way through, like at least like 6 or 7 times since it first started. And obviously being a lot younger when I first saw it, obviously there's characters of every age in that show. And like the last time I noticed it is just like you start to identify with some characters more, you start to identify with some characters less as your agent. And that's and so like the last time I watched it, I was like, oh shit, this show is going to be being reevaluated by me for probably many more years. So
I know that's what I'm excited about, because at this age, like it's so many years later, and they recut the trailer right on HBO Max for like a new audience. And so now they say from the creator of True Blood. So back then, of course, Alan Ball, fucking badass for making this show. And now they're like from the creator of True Blood. And then they got Lena Dunham's like thing that's like, I could not help but cry like for days or something, like at the ending of this series. And I'm just like sitting there like with my girlfriend being like, just wait. I can't wait for her to experience this. It's a cool thing. So I wanted to tell you that.
Hell yeah. Love to hear it. Ooh, I'm excited to hear the progression through the seasons and the reactions that you and she gets.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, all right. Well, I'm just going to sign it off here. I think we had a really good, productive conversation about American movie, amongst other things. Always great to head into the weekend feeling like really, really connected to you through some art. So thanks for the conversation.
Hell yeah, man. Best part of my week. So.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week on some mystery movie that Pat is going to grace us with. And for Pat and I, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you later, bud.
See ya.